You can't sit still and you can't not understand what's going on. We talk about embedded payments. I don't want to blow your mind here, Vince, but more recently, we're starting to talk about crypto in the B2B payments world. Corporations, some of them are right at the forefront, some of them are getting dragged into this whether they like it or not. Banks run on old legacy systems, which causes a lot of headaches and things to move slowly. That's getting better.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, where we explore insights and trends shaping the global recruiting and staffing industry. Want to build talented teams that drive your company toward big goals and big growth? Then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters, brought to you by HireQuest. Connect with us at hirequest.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Vince Holt, and I'm the host of Talent Hunters. Today, we have Richard Dooley, a Senior Treasury Sales Officer with Fifth Third Bank located in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, Richard serves as a trusted advisor to C-suite executives in treasury teams to understand their processes and goals so he can help deliver maximum effectiveness and efficiency in working capital and treasury functions involving emerging payment industry trends and best practices. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks, Vince. Great to be here. I really appreciate it and looking forward to the conversation.
Oh, thank you for being here. So, as I understand it, you work at a level that it's way over my head. I mean, yes, I pay my bills, write a check, whatever be the case, but you work way above that with corporations. Could you please describe in detail, what's your mission with those teams?
Yeah, sure. Love to. So I work primarily with corporations, right? So large corporate clients, pretty much. I've worked with companies from financial institutions to commercial real estate, now more recently technology and media type companies, and some other type of companies in there. And we work closely with these clients to help them with things like working capital, standard money movement, liquidity needs, providing them the services that they might need, helping guide them in terms of where they need to be and things like that. So think about a large corporate may have some real complex needs. Some of these larger financial or technology companies are a little bit more complex in what they need. Some other companies need less complexity. So you might be talking about a client who might need advanced payment solutions, whether it's around automation or APIs, which I know we'll talk about, which is kind of a newer development. Maybe it's even embedded payments. I know we'll get into some of that. But some clients just simply need kind of the standard. They move money electronically via maybe ACH. They do some wires. They maybe even write some checks. They get a little reporting of the data back to them for reconciliation purposes, things like that. Maybe they have a little bit on deposit with us, or maybe they have a lot. They want some interest rate on those kind of dollars. And so it's things like that. So it's kind of a broad spectrum that we see kind of in this corporate and B2B world.
So you mentioned embedded payments. Now, I've never heard that terminology before. Could you educate us, please?
So embedded payments has been one of the newer developments, I guess, in the payment space over the years. And most simply, basically what it is, it refers to integrating payment processing right into a corporate platform. So simply think of it like this. You might be a fan of, I don't know, Nordstrom, or maybe you like me, you get all these lands and emails and you're like, hey, I need something. So I go to this website and I'm doing some online shopping. And these companies have done, they've embedded payments processing right into their own platform. So when I go to check out, I don't have to go to a separate payment site, that payment processor site, or even a banking site. It's right there. It's seamless. It's on their platform, on the company's platform. Now, behind that is essentially what we call the plumbing. And so that's where the bank accounts are and the money movement. Something to keep in mind with embedded payments, if these companies add those services, so it's easy to pay on their website, or for other kind of companies, for example, fintechs that might provide certain services to merchants, let's say, right? So think of payment service providers, things like that. If you have a little e-commerce business, for example, you have a Shopify site, they're using a payments processor, you're going in there, they're offering that processing service, and the money moves easily. On the back end of that is the bank, and that's where we are, because no money moves anywhere in this country without a bank being involved. We've probably all heard the fintechs and the banks, and are fintechs going to be banks? It's really morphed into partnerships, because still to this day, if you want the banking plumbing, you got to come to a bank. And so at a high level, that's what embedded payments are.
So I think I understand it, but let me simplify it to my understanding. For example, in my case, I'm buying something from Amazon. Well, it used to be you had to go through all the payment process at the end of it. But Amazon has fast-lined it because they now know me, my history, and everything. So all I've got to do is say, process, and it's done. Is that what you're talking at the B2B level?
Yeah, exactly. So if that payment services processor wants to offer a service, for example, that merchant service, right? So I'm the merchant. I have a little shop on Shopify, or maybe I do business on Amazon, or I'm an Etsy or something like that. And Etsy uses one of the platforms out there. Could be Stripe or one of the other ones, things like that. They're offering payment services, payment processing services. But when that money moves and gets into the system, it goes through bank accounts. It comes in via ACH, or maybe it goes out or comes in real-time payments. In some cases, it might be a wire, things like that. But there's always a bank behind that. You don't necessarily see it as a consumer, but we deal with those B2B companies that are offering those services either to their consumers, maybe they want to offer them to the merchant world, or their customers. And so that's what, on the back end, and our embedded payment services, that's what we do.
So in my reading, and because there was so much to consume here that I may have misunderstood this, but is there what you do, or is there something going on today that is taking the legacy bank out of the picture?
No, actually, there's not. It would seem like it in this kind of fintech, brave new world. But if you want to be a bank in the United States, you've got to go through a charter process. It's hefty, it's expensive, it's time consuming, we are a very, very highly regulated business. So sometimes banks will compete against fintechs, sometimes they won't. Oftentimes, it's a partnership. We have partnerships with fintech type companies that do offer accounts payable type automation services. Now, corporates can get those services directly from the fintech at times. However, if there's some kind of bank partnership behind that service. So if I'm utilizing some kind of company for an invoice processing service or an end-to-end invoice to payment service, for example, and it's ABC Fintech or ABC Tech Company, there's a bank behind it. There's some bank behind that providing that plumbing, so to speak. So banks have morphed with this kind of environment, with the payments environment, with the dynamism of the payments world, with the advent of a lot of fintechs. There's been a lot of partnerships because the fintechs realized a while ago that, hey, becoming a bank is very difficult, very expensive, very time consuming, and we don't want to be that regulated. And the bank said, hey, well, we're already there. So let's have a conversation because we can provide this stuff over here. You guys can provide this stuff over here, kind of the front end stuff, and we'll work together and we'll get more clients. So everybody kind of wins in that scenario, but there's always going to be a bank behind it. So it depends on what bank it is, the kind of relationship that the fintech might need, or the kind of partnership that the bank wants. Not every bank wants to work with all the fintechs and vice versa. So we're very careful about who we work with. We scrutinize those relationships. We want to know what they're doing, who their customers are. So there's a process to it. But in that embedded payments world and in the legacy banking world, we're still around and we're going to be around for quite a while, I think.
So MRI Network recently published a blog. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see it or not. But it talked about the shift from traditional treasury management to API-driven platform-based payments.
Yep.
How are your clients navigating that transition, and what's pushing them to modernize?
The modernization question, sometimes you'll hear it referred to as digital transformation or automation is a big buzzword. Banks are looking at their needs. And so you've got a large world of corporates out there. Some are over here and they are stuck in their processes. They don't need any changes. They've been writing checks for years. their AP person has been there for 10, 20, 30 years, and they're not changing. And people in my position, everyone would tell you, we've run into clients like that or prospects like that, and that's how they're going to be. Others are open for it. Hey, we were really interested in kind of tightening up our processes, looking at things the way we can do better. At this point today, corporates are looking at this like more of a must-have because their competitors, the companies that they compete with, whatever industry you're talking about, and I was just reading an article last night about this, how there's a shift with companies. A lot of it has to do with competition, staying at least along with their competitors or trying to get ahead of them. So offering either services to their customers that are more on the digital transformation automation front, or just looking to cut out waste and things like that and time in their processes so they can get faster, they can process payments faster, they can get money in faster, they can pay out as they need to. So a lot of it still comes down to liquidity needs, working capital, cash flow. Those are things that never change kind of in the treasury management world, whether you're a corporation or a bank. And so it really comes down to those kind of needs. So I'll give you an example. If you are a certain kind of company, you don't want to pay your suppliers any faster. You probably have contracts with them. You're probably 30, 60 days, something like that. You don't have a need to pay them faster. There might be a world within that, I'm a corporation, I have this a world of suppliers. I might find 2 or 3 that I might call strategic. And I might say, I'm going to pay these ones faster because it's a certain product that they supply that I really need. So now you have opportunities within your treasury management platform to pay them faster. You can send them a same-day ACH. You can send them a real-time payment. You can pay them much more quickly than you could in the past. For those other ones, you pay them on the same way. On the receivable side, if you're that key supplier, you can go to your trading partner and say, listen, we're running on tight margins. The economy's slowing down. We can't wait 30 days anymore. We got to get paid in 15 days. Or we got to get paid when we provide the service or the good. And it might say, okay, we'll take in a real-time payment, or we want that same-day ACH. And so from that standpoint, there's ways that corporates can look at how do they strategize within their entire payment spectrum. If they want to get that invoice in from the supplier and have that process automated from front end to back end, where they get the invoice in, it comes into their system, it's automated, it's a workflow process, it goes right to your desk for your approval, and it goes right to my desk for my approval, and then bang, it goes right out, and a payment is made. It could be an ACH, it could be a virtual card payment, for example, or a wire, or maybe even a real-time payment. And of course, the old school check way. So there's a lot of things that corporates can do these days to kind of choose their strategy. Some are harder to change than others. Others are very much on the forefront. Hey, we want to do this. We know we need to do it. What's out there? What can we use? What strategies can we utilize, and what services and solutions can we look at? And that's where we come in and have these conversations, strategize with the client. Hey, this would be a great fit for you guys. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's talk to your suppliers. Let's work on these strategies to make the entire payment spectrum work for you.
I'm an old dog, and I've seen so much change in technology, and it's such a great tool, but it is happening so fast that it's leaving a lot of us, in the dust to try and understand. And I appreciate how you've broken this down. Now, this podcast is hosted by HireQuest, and we truly are, all day, every day, what we deal with is helping companies and helping candidates meet each other and solve individual goals, problems, whatever be that. We provide solutions. What do you feel with all these shifts that are going on in the banking world like this? What do you feel the impact on hiring and skill sets is changing today?
Yeah, it's an important question, especially for candidates who might be looking, and companies who are looking for the right candidate. So if you're a corporate and you have a large AP staff or large treasury staff, or maybe you're trying to build it out, or you are an already complex type company that has got a lot of movement, but you've had some turnover or people are getting promoted into other roles, you want to bring someone in who can kind of hit the ground running. There's a lot out there in the payment space. A lot has changed. Obviously, you got to really keep up with it. I put out a newsletter on LinkedIn every couple of weeks. And basically what that is, it's a curated newsletter with articles that I choose that I think are relevant, timely. And I'm reading everything. I'm reading a ton of stuff all week long. I'm reading it. This is a good one. This is not. I want this one. I want that one. And I won't say that everybody has to do that. What you can do is just subscribe to my newsletter and find that out for yourself on LinkedIn. And then internally here, I provide it to a lot of my peers and colleagues, which helps them. And it provides us good data and good information that we can give to our clients. Say, this is what's going on in the world today. But you can't sit still and you can't not understand what's going on. I refer back to that old type of corporate that is a prospect or a client. And, and Betty's been their AP person for 30 years. And she knows everything about everything right there, but she doesn't know anything about the outside world. She might not want to because she might think her job is in danger. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Everybody loves Betty, but quite frankly, a lot of people are looking forward to her retiring so we can get in there with some new solutions and new conversations. But really, if you're in this space, whether you're on the banking side, whether you're a corporate, or whether you're some other provider like a fintech or some other type of company providing these kind of services, you really got to keep tabs on things. LinkedIn's a great platform. There's lots of other websites out there that are kind of focused on the payments world. The Association for Financial Professionals, for example, is a great resource for a lot of this, kind of focused more on the corporate world. But you really have to keep up because there's so many changes. We talk about APIs. We talk about embedded payments. I don't want to blow your mind here, Vince, but more recently, we're starting to talk about crypto in the B2B payments world in the form of stablecoins, right? So there's a real conversation going on there. I have some clients who are utilizing it, and it's coming in. And at some point down the road, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, if you and I are talking again, it's going to be a different conversation. So you really got to keep up with those things and hear what's going on. The regulatory landscape is a big deal. So this administration is more crypto friendly, a little bit lighter on the regulatory aspect. We had the CEO of Bank of America a few months back say on camera, hey, listen, if the regulators are okay with stablecoins, we're getting into that business. I was like, wow. And that really changed things a lot in the market, made people stand up and say, we got to pay attention to this. So if you want to be on the forefront of this industry, you really got to keep tabs on what's happening from a lot of different avenues and just at least understand it, at a high level. What is an API? What are embedded payments? What's payment processing? What are merchant services? What does an acquirer mean? What are these other new things? What is a real-time payment? What are the data standards? How do we share information? It sounds like a lot, but you can find that out if you pay attention, and you'll get there and you'll be a little bit more educated than the next person, and hopefully that gets you the job.
Some of the old school, and I'm guilty of this, recruiters, we rely so much on the verbal conversation with, and I'm going to just focus on the client. The verbal conversation of finding out what the need is. With these ever-changing, state-of-the-art technical changes going on, what are some basic questions I, as a recruiter, could ask a client? I'm dealing with a bank. They're having a need in this world that you dig in. What are some simple questions that I, as a recruiter, could ask that would help me dig into finding that solution for you as the bank?
Yeah. I suppose if you're speaking to a client, for example, that's looking to hire someone, right? So maybe it's a bank, maybe it's some other corporate that's expanding maybe their AP department or their treasury management group, whatever it might be. What are they looking to do? Are you looking to expand your operations? Are you looking to replace a person? Or are you looking to maybe replace somebody but expand a little bit more than that? Do you want this person to have an understanding, a deeper understanding of kind of the new developments in the payments world? Or what are you looking for them to do? Is it a product person? Is it a product person that has some background with APIs, for example, or embedded payments? So these areas where corporations, like I talked about before, some of them are right in the forefront. Some of them are getting dragged into this, whether they like it or not. Hey, we need API capability. We need to utilize this. We do want to offer some payment services to our clients. So we've got to get an embedded solution. We need a product person who's got some background there, who understands maybe what that is. If you're looking for more of an operational person, do they understand the technical aspects of that? Do they understand how can they help you? If I'm the operational person, Vince, and you're I'm directly reporting to you, can I explain to you the system of getting the information from the corporate VA API and then sending it back to them? What does that look like? What needs to happen? And how do we make sure it works well without anybody getting caught up or things failing or whatever it is? So I think you need to ask what they're doing, what they're looking for, and the kind of person that they want, and what kind of specific experience do you need them to have. And if it's something like, listen, we're looking for somebody to come in and change things and modernize things, we don't even know what we want, that's still not a bad way to look at it. That gives you or anybody else as the recruiter the chance to go out to the environment and say, listen, I'm looking for someone who understands payment modernization. This client is looking to take their game from A to B, and they need somebody who's got a good, strong background and who's been at the conferences, been at this, been at that, understands money movement and all the things that are happening in the current environment. For an individual candidate, what have they done? What are they doing? What have they been exposed to? Do they understand what these things mean? Do they have any exposure to things like embedded payments or APIs? Do they have clients doing that? What is their background in kind of the payments world? Do they go to conferences? Are they a member of the AFP? Things like that. How have they been working kind of within this world? What do they understand? And there, I think you would probably have to ask an individual some more technical related questions, because anybody could say, sure, I know what an API is. I know what embedded payments is. They just went on ChatGPT and figured it out. But maybe get into a little bit more technical aspect. And if you as a recruiter maybe don't know what those technical questions are, I would say go figure them out. Go ask them, or maybe ask that potential employer, if I had to ask 2 or 3 technical questions, what should they be? Or whatever it is. Dig down deep and figure out, because it's not just, yeah, I have relationships. Sure, I work with clients. Yep, I'm treasury management, so on and so forth. It's really, you got to kind of dig in. In this environment, you really got to dig in a little deeper to find out what's going on, what people know, and what they need.
To encapsulate, and you said something that I think me as a recruiter, I never developed a relationship of knowing what my clients did in detail, because every client was different. I always approached it with a broad question and then focused in on your answer. The broad question that I think I heard you say, the terminology is, how involved in payment modernization are you involved in today? And I think, would that be the right first question to ask and then dig in on what they answer?
I think so. I think so. It's a good term. I think it would indicate to a corporate or an individual, what's happening in the modern world. And I think the answer will give you some real indication of what they know, what they don't know. Again, to not get too technical, but you talk about payments modernization, for example, right? So if you're talking to a corporate and they have certain needs, and they maybe have multinational business, they have overseas international business, they are probably familiar with what SWIFT is, which is a payments messaging system, right? That sends messages back and forth. And you might want to understand how the new financial data standard of ISO 20022 plays into that, because SWIFT is changing their messages from one format to the ISO format. That gets very technical. But if someone can understand that, so if I'm a corporate and I need to bring somebody on who can jump into the space where we're dealing with international clients, and you're going to be sending wires and you're going to be sending SWIFT messages, you really need to know what that is, how to use it, what it means, what the messages are. So when you talk about that modernization, somebody might say, can you be a little more specific? Or you might say, give me a broad idea of what you're doing from a payments modernization standpoint. And then that opens up the question to go on these different avenues. And I think you can get a real sense of, do they really know what they're talking about? Do they understand what's really happening in these different areas of the payments world? Again, whether it's APIs, embedded payments, real-time payments, what's FedNow doing? What's the clearinghouse doing? How does that work? Things like that.
A little while ago, you briefly went over a bit of 3 to 5 years out. You're working on a day-to-day basis today, but your vision has to be a minimum of 3 to 5 years out for you to be effective, for your organization to be leading the field in a Reader's Digest form. What's your vision 3 to 5 years out?
It's kind of a tough question to answer. I will say that I'm very excited of what 3 to 5 years out looks like or might look like. We may be, and I haven't mentioned this yet, but I've actually done a couple of conferences in the metaverse, for example. So I don't know if you've had any experience with what the metaverse is. We haven't heard much about it, but it's this virtual platform where you can sell things to people. And so we might see more there, where you're on an online platform, you're walking in, you're as an avatar, you're going to this place, going to that place. It's very interesting. There will be more, I think, consolidation within the industry amongst the fintech world. I think there will be, as long as the economy doesn't flop too badly at some point, I think there'll be banking consolidation. I think you'll find banks, probably not the biggest banks, but the mid-sized, regional, smaller banks, maybe combining, a big regional might look at a more community level bank that might be doing something interesting in the embedded payment space, and combine there, or just geographical combinations, for example. So from the banking standpoint, I think we'll see more of that. From the payments technology, we'll continue to see embedded payments flourish. We'll continue to see API capabilities build and grow. We'll get faster with payments. We'll get better data with payments. The ISO 20022 standard really provides a real structure around financial data sharing. So once corporates really start learning this better, the communication between them and their trading partners is going to really improve. That's going to make things very efficient. And I think when you find efficiencies, when you bring those efficiencies in, opportunities open up. We don't even know what those are yet. So what are fintechs going to do? What are corporates going to do when they realize we've really brought a lot of efficiency into our system? How can we expand? Or wow, we've expanded our margins more than we thought we could. That gives us the opportunity to go out and maybe do some M&A or things like that. So as the payments world continues to expand and develops new technologies and continues on this path we're on, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities in areas that we haven't even seen yet. But I know that in 3 to 5 years from now, we'll be having a different conversation. Although there still will be corporates writing checks, I guarantee that. Betty will still be around somewhere. That's guaranteed. But, we're going to be talking about more things like crypto in the payments world. And I think, in 5 years from now, that could be very standard. It could be like, yeah, of course, we've been doing that for years. So very exciting things happening, very interesting things going to happen. What I think people don't realize about the payment space is that it's a technology space. There's a lot of technology around it. The banks are getting better at technology. The banks are updating their systems. Banks run on old legacy systems, which causes a lot of headaches and things to move slowly. That's getting better. So it's kind of very exciting what's going to be happening over the course of the years. If I had a perfect crystal ball, I would retire today and I'd buy all the stock out there that these companies. I don't, so I'm just going to stick around and ride the wave as best I can.
Sounds like you enjoy it.
I do. I really do. I like this space a lot. It's fun.
Well, Richard, I want to thank you very, very much for taking the time. And boy, you just broadened my vision of what's going on beyond what I've ever seen before. And I thank you for that. And I thank you for the education and helping recruiters in defining really what you do in this world. And your time was very, very valuable. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Vince. Thanks for the invite. I love talking about this topic, so enjoyed it.